Hello, BookTube. I've got the trusty iPad here. I thought I'd give you a Monday morning report on how my bookish weekend went. Not just books either, but all the stuff that I did and watched and whatnot. It was a full weekend of reading. it was all the books from my Friday reads plus some changes at the last minute and some additions for deadline work and whatnot. And I want to go through a little of them and just talk about them a bit. I don't have any visual aids here. Sorry about that. You'll just have to look at my face. But first one being Little Lord Fauntleroy by Frances Hodgson Burnett, the children's book that I showed you on Friday, that I'd already read once, and I liked it very much, and so I reread it again. This time it was in a beautiful illustrated edition, and I loved it. What a book! What a simple, sweet, and yet deceptively complex book. The thing I noticed this time around especially was the complicating plot. The main plot is a little boy in America finds out that he is the heir to British landed aristocracy, that he's going to have castles and tenants and wealth. Because all the intervening members of the family have all died, so his grandfather has no choice but to settle the line on him. So he goes to England and learns all about his new home. That's the main plot, and the main element of that plot is something that I mentioned on Friday, which is really sweetly done, where the boy's admiration for his grandfather prompts his grandfather to be worthy of that admiration. That's the main part of the book that's done with adult nuance, where a large portion of that will go right over the head of an 8-year-old boy who's reading this. But the thing I noticed this time around is the complicating plot. There are two sort of intertwined complicating plots of rival claimants to the title that is going to come to Little Lord Fauntleroy, and I thought originally when I read it years and years and years ago that those people were kind of cardboard, but no, they are as well drawn as all the other characters in the book. Reading it, Little Lord Fauntleroy again this time around had two main effects on me. One was that it made me want to immediately read everything else by this author again. In fact, I think there are quite a few things by this author that I have not read. So I'm going to do a little stroll at Project Gutenberg and see how much of her is there. And two was to wonder, I had a curiosity wondering what a modern-day, 21st century version of Little Lord Fauntleroy would be like. I just can't, how different it would be. I actually have known in the past, some teenage scions of the English landed gentry, and their lives are truly alien in a lot of ways, and I wonder what a modern version would be like. If any of you know of a modern version that isn't just dumb, I mean, some romance novels just turn on this as a device. Somebody learns their royalty, or whatnot. But if any of you know an example that I'm just missing, an update of Little Lord Fauntleroy, I would love to know about it. The next book, I did read it. I spent a whole rainy afternoon on The Pale King by David Foster Wallace. And I'm afraid it did not dislodge my opinion that first of all, it's a patchwork thing. He wasn't anywhere close to what would have been the finished version of this book had the author not killed himself. A friend of his, sort of a mental brother, pulled this all together, and my hat's off to him, because the degree of coherence in this thing is amazing, considering what that friend had to work with. And there are long passages of clear literary brilliance. You can read this thing, and no matter how much it's annoying you, you can think, well, okay, let's say you took the name off it completely, and you didn't know anything about the story of it, never heard of anything else. You would read this and you would think, well, whoever this is, no matter what poor training they've had, no matter what bad habits they've developed, they've got genuine, blazing literary talent. But unfortunately, this was the same thing. That literary talent was in fits and flashes all throughout, but not sustained, unfortunately. So I read. I'm never going to read The Pale King again. I will just dispose of that volume. But I wanted to give it one more try, and it has primed me so that when the day comes, the day is inevitable. I don't know how close it is. The day when I reread Infinite Jest, it's primed me for that. Then the next one is The Gone Away World by Nick Harkaway, the debut novel by the author of Tiger Man and Gnomon, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. All the elements that are so strong in Tiger Man, especially, and also in No One breaks new ground, so it creates new elements. But all of the elements that are so standout in those books are easily visible in this first one. It's clear that this author has a row he wants to hoe, and his stories are of embattled heroism against the backdrop of a world that's very much like our recognizable world, but it has serious non-real things wrong with it, serious dystopian things wrong with it, that everybody's just coping with, that everybody's just figuring out what to do. And the main thing in this book is the gone away war, that sucks up eventually our two main characters and eventually everything else in the book. I loved it. I love this author anyway, but I feel certain that if I had read this book without having read the other two books that I've read by him, if I'd read this as a debut when it came out, somehow I missed it, I think I would have been incredulous. I wouldn't have believed it was a debut novel. It just doesn't read like that at all. Then the next one was that cute little reprint. I wish I had it here, of Murders at the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe, which turned out to have all three of the Dupin mysteries, not just one. So all of the appearances of the main character, plus a really engaging introduction, just the kind of thing. I mean, I have a big collected Edgar Allan Poe on the shelf out in the other room, but this is just the kind of thing, if you just want to read that, I don't know that I'll keep it. It was very pretty, but somebody else will love it a lot more than I will, I think. Poe's fiction. I know that's heresy, but his fiction just doesn't do it for me. It's so heavy-handed. It's so syrupy. Even when the stories in this case, are about an alleged icy master of ratiocination still. It just doesn't work. The next one was Maria Headley's The Mere Wife, which is a modern-day retelling of Beowulf. It went right by me. I'm glad this is an advanced copy because I want to read it again in finished copy. This one, it certainly isn't. You couldn't possibly do. As an adaptation, as a pastiche of Beowulf, it fails completely. And that was obvious after 30 pages. So what I was doing after that was trying to figure out, okay, but how well does it succeed or fail as a novel, as a contemporary novel? And I have a suspicion, it didn't work on me at all. I didn't like it in the slightest. But I have a suspicion. It isn't like a lot of things where I'll read it and I'll think this isn't working on me, and it also isn't working, period, full stop. It's just bad. I didn't get that impression here. There's an active brain at work here. So I think I'll probably want to read it again. I might need me to give you yet another follow-up on this book once I get a finished copy. And then the next one was Safe Houses by Dan Fesserman. And I wanted out. I wanted out of the book. I know that's terrible. It's a finished copy. I will finish it, but I read like the first, I think it must have been 70 pages without hitting anything. It was all well done. It was all very crisp and professionally done. If you like police procedurals and spy thrillers, then you will like this book. But I got 70 pages in without anything that, when you're reading a genre thing, you want something to happen that sort of pokes up from the shag carpet. You want something to happen that individualizes the work, and at 60 or 70 pages that still hadn't happened, so I sort of wandered away. I feel bad about that. I will get back to this book. So it's two of them that I will get back to. I wandered away and started rereading huge chunks of I Will Be Complete by Glenn David Gould. His book we've seen before. His new... Actually, do I have that here? I would love to show you something instead of... Oh, yeah. Okay. This new memoir by the author of Carter Beats the Devil and Sunnyside. The reason I read it a little while ago, and the reason I went back and read whole chunks of it again is because it's absolutely incredible. Just incredible. It will be one of the most incredible books you read this year. I'm going to collect my thoughts on it and write a review, but you should read it. Let's just put it that way. You should read it. The next book that I want to do a report on was Brother. Another debut novel, this one by David Chariandi, which I'd read originally and was impressed by. I read it again in the finished copy. I was a little more impressed. There are some places in its stretch where it sort of nods just a bit, where, and that's unfortunate because this writer is clearly really, really good at what he does. And there were a couple of moments. It's about two main characters and a woman who enters a young woman who enters their life at the beginning of the book, and it's the ideological strand throughout the book is their sort of cautious testing relationship with racism, with institutionalized racism in one form or another. And there were a couple of scenes where that thread comes to a head at the end of the book that struck me as a little bit mannered. When on that particular subject in this particular country, if you're going to write fiction about it, it had better ring with authenticity. And I still think I'm still very much impressed by it. It's one of the most impressive debuts I've read this year so far. But I don't know. I will towards the end of the year when I'm rounding up my books for my Steve Reads Epic Year's Best and Worst list of books. Of course, one of the categories there is debut fiction. I will probably read Brother again. I strongly recommend it. It won't let you down. I'm not meaning to sound down on the book. It's just, I don't know. It's the same thing. There was some spark that just there was a bright light of intelligence all throughout the thing, but there was some spark at the final act that seemed to be missing to me. I don't know. It's not a flat out rave. And same thing's true with the next one, Rome Resurgent by Peter Heather, which is a short but dense history of the Emperor Justinian's attempts to reclaim the Western Roman Empire from the waves of barbarian civilization. I'm not supposed to call them barbarians anymore. They certainly weren't. But the wave of invader civilizations that had first encroached on Rome's boundaries and then broken through, started taking huge swaths of territory. It's a story that's been told many, many times before, and this author does a real good job. Some of it seemed a little rote. It's the exact same thing. I was looking for a spark that I didn't really find, except in a couple of places. There are a couple of aspects of that story that he seems to tell really well, but I don't know. I don't know. I do recommend it. Same thing with all these others. Just because there wasn't that extraordinary spark doesn't mean these aren't good books. Just, it didn't jump out and sing at me. As you know, I've read a lot of really good works of history this year that did, and this one didn't quite. And that was it for the books, except for Kirkus Review, and I read 5 books for Kirkus Review. None of them were very long, and none of them were very good. I had to review them all, so that was a large chunk of reading too. I always leave that out, but that takes up time. And I also wanted to report on stuff that I saw and listened to. I was listening to all weekend long. I was listening to Sacred Oratorios by Handel for 2 reasons, 3 reasons. One, there's a new biography of him coming out soon, this fall, that looks really good. 2, I just the other day was hunting for a book and discovered a boxed set of the complete music of Handel on CD. An orange box set. I must have borrowed it from somebody and never got it back to them. And I had no idea that I had it. And 3, I belatedly remembered that my battered old MacBook, I have a battered old MacBook in the other room that I love to work on. It's a workhorse. It still works perfectly fine. It doesn't have the sharp camera or anything like that. If there were a way for me to sharpen the visuals on that machine, I would never use anything else. I wouldn't use this machine if I could make videos on that one that didn't look like they were filmed through Vaseline. But I realized, belatedly remember that thing has a disk drive. So I went hog wild. I'm playing Handel all weekend. It was wonderful. And then I wanted to tell you some of the things I saw as well. I watched the Netflix original movie Set It Up, which is a rom-com, I believe the term is. It's a Netflix is doing a lot and lots of original movies, and I really applaud that. They're bringing in good talent, lots of money, professional look to them, and turning out lots of interesting things. Unfortunately, this wasn't one of them. This was, or maybe it was, and I just couldn't see it. It's a movie about 2 young people in an office setting who have horrible bosses the young man has a male boss who's a thoroughly acidic, abusive workaholic, prone to throwing temper tantrums, demanding everything all the time of his workers. And the young woman has a female boss who's exactly the same way. And the premise is that the young man and the young woman decide, well, what these two need is a love life. If they had a love life, they wouldn't be married to their work. Let's set them up on a date. Let's manipulate them to the point where they go out with each other, and that maybe sparks will fly, and maybe we'll get some relief. And all four of the major actors and actresses in the show are very good. And of course, you can see the Hollywood development a mile away, which is that the young woman and the young man will start to gravitate towards each other, whether their plan works or not. But I couldn't get around the premise. I couldn't do it. There's nothing funny about that kind of boss. They exist. They're not an exaggeration for Hollywood. They exist. I actually had one once. They're loathsome creatures. They're not human. They've surrendered their humanity. They don't get it back if they go on a good date. They've surrendered their humanity. They don't have it anymore. And they really do come into work at 4 a.m, rehearse what they're going to say at their 7 a.m. meeting with staff for the 3 hours before 7 a.m., then give the meeting, not allow anyone to speak, discourage the staff from making direct eye contact. They're big on hierarchies. If you're a sub-management worker, you're not allowed to speak to them. They stay all day. They don't eat. They don't drink except coffee. And then at 9 or 9:30 or 10 at night, keep in mind they've been there since 4 a.m, at 9:30 or 10 at night, when the second or third shift workers that report to them are starting to clock out and go home, those workers are getting met with a look or sometimes even an outward expression of derision, of contempt. Oh, you're leaving so soon, are you? You don't have any more work to do? So everything you've done today is perfect, huh? Instead of thank you for a day of work. Thank you for the time you spent here. Thank you for your dedication. There's nothing like that. There's never any thank you. These creatures are awful. And they are motivated. You might think, you've heard all the rubrics, nice girls don't get the corner office, that nice guys finish last, that sort of thing. But that's not true. These creatures aren't motivated by excellence or professionalism. They're motivated by hatred. They hate other people, everyone else. You dig a little into their lives and you realize that their families are full of hatred. Their families hate them. They hate their family. And they take it out on their workers in exactly the same way that Southern plantation overseers took it out on their slaves. Brutal all the time, constantly twisting the screws. I couldn't see past it. I just couldn't do it. I know I was meant to. I know it's a harmless movie, but I couldn't see past it. To root for these two, first of all, to fall in love and find happiness, but also to root for anybody that would take it instead of walking out. The only reason these creatures exist and have power is because people don't walk out. They should. Everyone should. They should. The next time a person like one of the young people in this movie is given a totally irrational demand or an insult, they should say, well, okay, I really wanted this job for the advancement and because I'm passionate about the field, but that's a little too much. So I'm leaving. I'm not giving you 2 weeks notice. I'm leaving right now. Bye. If everyone were to do that, these creatures couldn't exist. And I see I'm ranting about socioeconomics when I was supposed to turn my brain off and just watch a fun movie. I couldn't do it. So I can attest that Set It Up is very professionally done. It's really well done. If you can turn off your hatred for these poison android bosses, you will love it. But I couldn't. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is something that I very much did enjoy. I got a screener for a movie called Unfriended, Dark Web. I don't know why it has 2 titles. Maybe because there was an earlier movie named Unfriended, and Dark Web, I don't know. Maybe it would be thought of as a Spider-Man movie or something. But it was written and directed by Steven Susko, and oh my, was it good. It's the story of a young guy who finds a computer. He gets a new laptop that has tons and tons of dark web files on it. The dark web it's an illicit underbelly of the World Wide Web. You approach it through an untraceable server. You surf it in a concatenation of untraceable maneuvers. And because all of it is incredibly hard to trace and track, and because you don't leave any digital imprint, and because there's no commerce except in Bitcoin, which is also not traceable, criminality flourishes on the dark web. It's where you go to buy drugs or weapons or take out a hit on somebody or something like that. I've read books on the subject of the darknet that predict that is just its Wild West days, and that actually it is the future of the internet. Because everybody on the internet, thanks to Edward Snowden and a whole bunch of other people like him, everyone on the internet is now concerned about their privacy, right? I mean, I'm filming this video right now so that you can watch it, but I am also being watched through the same camera that I'm filming on, and I know that. Everybody knows that. There's nothing we can do about it, except the dark web is built to thwart that kind of surveillance. And I've read books where authors said, you know, as strange as it seems, the good law-abiding people will slowly marginalize the criminals on the dark web, but they will all move there. Why wouldn't they? So that no one can track their purchases, so that no one can track their moves. Nothing like that. There'd be nothing like that anymore. But one way or another, that isn't true in this movie. In this movie, it's pure evil. And this kid finds a whole bunch of files that lead him to. He's in constant Facebook chat with all of his friends, and we see that. That's filmed. It's filmed that way with the screens up, and they're joking at first that, oh wow, whoever had this was deep into the dark web, and then the kid starts finding files on the computer that look real, of horrible things, human trafficking, televised torture, death, and the friends are debating back and forth, you know, gee, this looks real, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden messages start popping up on the laptop that the owner of the laptop knows that he has it and is not happy about that. The whole thing becomes an elaborate trap where the dark web reaches out to these young people. And I loved it. Oh my God, what a movie. It was so much fun. One of the things I love most about the cast is sort of mezza, and there's nobody really stands out. They have very, very shallow things to do, and they all do them very energetically. The thing I like most about it is the different kinds of filming. A lot of times in movies, at least a few years ago, it used to be that if in the course of the movie, you saw some footage that was alleged to be on a computer, somebody opened their computer and said, here you go, here's what it looks like. The footage looked exactly the same as what you were seeing in the movie. And in this, no. In this, the Susco's made the great decision to make all of the internet stuff look like internet stuff. The internet stuff we see every day. With surveillance cameras and bad laptop cameras and whatnot and news photos. Oh, and that works. That really works to make it feel immediate. Oh my. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I didn't prep on my iPad. I don't remember when, what's it called again? It's got two titles, so it always screws me up. Unfriended Dark Web. I don't remember when it comes out. I think it's a July release. I'm working my way through a pile of screeners that I have that I've just been letting sit there. And this was just the one at the top. I decided not to play favorites, just do them in order. So this was the top of the pile. And I loved it. I wasn't scared at all. Horror movies don't scare me, but it was really, really effectively done. I think you would really like it. Anybody who spends time online is going to feel this movie. And that was it. That's my Monday report. Those were the books that I read this weekend, plus a lot of stuff books that aren't worth mentioning, believe me. If I read a Kirkus book or a Publishers Weekly book or anything like that, they're all self-published. That's what I review. And if I read one of those things that was stand up and cheer good, believe me, I would tell you. I would sing it from the rooftops. I would want everybody to know about it. But it didn't happen this weekend. And then a whole bunch of others that were hit or miss. So that's my Monday report. Of course, I'd love to know how your Monday or your weekend went. What your reading plans? How did it go? Were you pleased? This time around, it would easily be possible for you to be more pleased than I was. This was kind of a low-key weekend reading. Not a lot of blasts, of supernova blasts of greatness that I like. They keep me going on the weekend. But that's, when you read as much as I do, that's the price you pay. So one way or another, let me know in the comments field what you did, and I'll wrap this up. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.